Sometimes the demon is bigger in our own head. Sometimes we tell ourselves we can't ask for love. We can't ask for help. We love control. We love having it all together. Process starts with actually being okay with not being okay. But most of us, especially women, we are conditioned to be liked. That means people like you, you're validated, you're worthy. If you're beautiful, somebody likes you. So we are conditioned to seek validation from external forces instead of being like, it's okay if I have acne on my face, it's okay if I have stretch marks, I'm beautiful, right? But that's not the way we are conditioned. The chase needs to stop, otherwise we are going to burn out in the process, and then it's going to take you way longer to come back up. This is the hardest thing, that even though you've tried everything, accepting that sometimes they're still not going to look at it the way you want them to look at it. Still pursuing what your heart says, knowing when it is in the right direction or not.
Simran, I'm so glad we're doing this.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Brave Table.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so you are known on the interwebs as the brown boss babe queen. So I kind of want to start there. What gave you the inspiration?
My own failure, I think. I think, isn't that the best place to start?
Yes.
Nobody starts when they're motivated. When you're down in the dumps and you feel like you don't belong, and there was a point where I felt like I don't belong. I see a lot of things happening online, but there was no safe space where I felt I connected in all terms, not just as a woman, but as a woman of color. And that's why I was like, if there's not one, I'll build one. And that's where it started. And believe it or not, it just spitballed.
Well, yes, because I feel like when I came across your account, I'm like, yes, she's speaking about all of the things that I think so many of us, you know, and for sure, like the younger version of myself was like, I wish I had so much bravery and courage to do what Simran did, you know, when I was going through my divorce and all of my failures from like my relationships. And so one of the things that one of your posts actually was how to know, or 5 signs to know that you're like a people pleaser. And so if you can just take us through maybe some of your people pleasing tendencies around family or society. And, you know, we think as a Desi from the West, it's so different. Would you say that is the case, or it's not the case? Or because I want to, you know, kind of highlight some of the challenges that a lot of women face here with those nuances of growing up with expectations. But I also want to draw similarities of, you know, how we are even similar in those ways.
Yeah, honestly, like I would say that we are more similar than we realize. But of course, there are some certain, you know, details which are a little different. But most of us, especially women, we are conditioned to be liked. That means people like you, that means you're accepted, you're validated, you're worthy. If you're beautiful, somebody likes you, you're happy about yourself, right? So we are conditioned to seek validation from external forces instead of being like, you know what, it's okay if I have acne on my face, it's okay if I have stretch marks, I'm beautiful, right? But that's not the way we are conditioned. So I feel like overall, we have a lot of similarities when it comes to people pleasing. But if I have to get specific within our culture, I don't think the West and the East have any differences, because I feel you grew up with that kind of a family, and so did I.
True.
And their conditioning is the same. So your great-grandfather and my great-grandfather and great-grandmother had similar conditioning, right?
Yeah, our lineages, it was
Exactly.
like how they were raised, and then they passed on that generational trauma
Yep.
to how then our grandparents were raised, and then to our parents who how they were raised. And
I would say like the biggest difference is that over here, because we are in the country, you're here, right? So it's okay to be a little bit more modern and accepted. I've seen that in the West, sometimes people try and hold on to the culture more because they're so away from it. And we do the opposite, that we run away from it because we're here. And we run to the West because we're like, we don't want to feel too Indian about things, right?
well, it's so funny because you met a couple of some of our really close friends, and they're like, I have not been to a Diwali celebration. And every time I come to the States, I'm going to a garba, I'm going to temples.
Yes.
Like, I can't even tell you the last time I did
Absolutely.
that. And so it is very true. I think a lot of times the perception from the West is, how Desi can you be? And even like I'm half, right? And so the idea was, okay, how can I belong? And if you're one part, it's like how Punjabi can you be, or how Sikh can you be? I mean, it's very like this belonging has an identity of some sort.
Absolutely.
And so for you, I'm so curious about the way that you've started multiple different things. There was a post on your profile that you had your dream job, you were living in Milan, and then completely did a 180. How was that for you? And then also breaking that news to your family.
Oh my God, disastrous. That's how it was. Because I think it's that quote which says, like, be careful what you wish for because you just might get it. And I never understood the power of it till I actually got what I wanted. And then I realized that I didn't want it. I was conditioned to believe that that's what I should be. Oh, you're a high achiever. Oh, if you're a brown kid, either you're a high achiever, you're a doctor, you're an engineer, or you're something, or you're nothing, right? Or you're a failure or a disappointment of the house, right? So it was my conditioning because I grew up as acing my studies, acing everything in life. So people expected me to do well. So people were like, oh, she is going to have like 10 degrees and do these big things and stuff like that. So I followed that path. I got like straight A's, I went to uni, I got scholarships. I was the only kid in my class as a non-European who landed a job in Italy. And I speak fluent Italian now, which is something I never thought I'd do in my life, right? But we're conditioned to work with that hustler's mindset that you gotta come out first, right? And the best part is when I won everything, suddenly after 6 months being there, I was like, this is not what I want. Somebody else told me that I should have this in my life. So, somebody else being either my family, my parents, my loved ones. I'm not blaming any one particular person. And to break the news to them that this is not something I want to do is always difficult. The first time around, I mean, I've pivoted 3 times and I turned 28 in November. And I've already pivoted my career thrice. So like literally my parents go like, is this the one now? Are you going to stick to this one? Because in our culture, we are taught that whatever you choose, it's going to stay. Or you're a doctor, you're going to stay a doctor for life.
For life.
So they don't ask you, oh, what inspires you? What you like? They ask you, what do you do? That's the second question. After what is your name?
Right. Yeah. Can we normalize just saying how are you? Or what are you inspired by? So I mean, let's break it down, because you kind of talk about this, and I want to double click on a few concepts, but one of the things that is coming up for me that's present right now that I want to speak to is you talk about the hustler's mindset of, I mean, you were a ballerina as well, and you studied in the US, then you went to, then you were in Italy, and high fashion, like the mecca of fashion, and now creating this global community, Brown Boss Babes. So, and you talk about this slow era. So talk to me about the slow girl era versus the hot girl era.
I think I'm like a victim of like the hustler girl era. And I'm this recovering victim of it, I would say, because I think today we are all realizing the importance of slowing down, because we grew up trying to fight for our freedom to be financially independent, to be seen, to do our thing, run our businesses, pivot, career changes, all of those things, right? And we're tired now. And I feel like it's also important to understand, this is where the feminine masculine balance comes in. And to anyone who's listening and doesn't understand what I'm trying to say, it is that we both have the masculine and the feminine energies. And to lead, to be a leader, to be ambitious means tapping into your masculine. But to slow down, to nurture, to be intuitive, means tapping into your feminine.
Yeah.
So we are now in a reverse cycle where all these women who hustled, built businesses, burned themselves out in like 2 years.
To try to be a man.
Try to be a man.
Yeah.
I don't know who said that, but okay. Let's
It's a
try to be a
patriarchal
woman
society.
now.
Yeah, to slow down.
So I think that's something I really talk about now way more than I used to, because I do not want to be constantly chasing to feel like I'm achieving. And this is something as a high achiever, as a people pleaser, I always dealt with, is that you are constantly chasing to be somebody or please somebody. And like we say, the chase needs to stop. Otherwise, we are going to burn out in the process. And then it's going to take you way longer to come back up. And I feel like I was stuck in this cycle of the burnout and flourish. There's nothing wrong with it. You just live in the extremes then.
Yeah.
So you're either burning out or you're really flourishing. And that doesn't really help.
Yeah, and I even think that, in my career pivots, like as a cosmetic dentist, I remember when I was trying so hard to be like the older doctor that I took the practice from, that I purchased the practice from. And he was, 40 years my senior. I was just in my 20s and he was in his 60s, retiring. And he was a white old man. I do not look anything or resemble anything like a white old man. And this is in, a town where it is predominantly, white. And so, I think as a young woman of color who actually looked very, very young at the time, everyone said, "Hey, are you the nurse? You're the assistant? Oh, do you work for Dr. So-and-so?" And that was a big chip on my shoulder that I'm like, okay, I'm going to prove to everybody that I belong here. Yeah. And so I'm going to work twice as hard. I'm going to wear turtlenecks. I'm going to not put makeup on so I can look like a guy. I'm actually not even going to put music on in my office that's my name, that has my name on the door, because I want to put classical music on because that's what they all listen to. And it was just everything that I was doing was to be like this person who didn't even own the practice anymore. I mean, it was my name on the door, yet the validation was still coming because, truthfully, people were related to this man. They had been with him for like 10, 15 years. I couldn't compete with that. Yeah. But what I could do was, really acknowledge and say, okay, yes, I'm going to lose some people, and that's okay. Because the ones who are really going to be attracted to you by yourself, that's going to take time. But when you start to shine your own authenticity, I didn't know what that was. And I think that for anybody that's listening to this or watching this on YouTube, I think that's the biggest reminder. And, this is just one example that I see so vividly, because who told me that I needed to be like a man? Like, I couldn't acknowledge my own zest and beauty and the fact that I loved EDM music. And so literally, I remember one vivid day, and this was after my divorce, and I was, coming into the office, and I couldn't hide what was going on around me, because I had a bunch of stuff that I just took from my house. It was in my very fancy car, and I just came inside to all the 10 people that were working for me at the time, and I said, I can't do this. I'm going through a divorce. You guys, if you don't know if your jobs are stable, you can find something else. I just don't know if I can do it. And from here on out, I'm just going to be completely transparent. And I can't tell you, when I let people in, things change. Yes. And so when I share that, when did you start to notice things changing for you from the expectations of other people? And how is it now that you've been able to build this community with those things in mind?
Yeah, I love that, because I think sometimes the demon is bigger in our own head. Sometimes we tell ourselves we can't ask for love. We can't ask for help. And this is something you mentioned. Shout out to the Suck Now What, because it's in your book.
It's true.
It's mentioned there, and that is the problem, that the minute I learned that I can ask, nobody actually physically ever told me or like verbally told me that, Sim, you have to do this or you have to do that. There was this unsaid pressure and expectation. And half of it was built in my head. Half of it was built in my head because I had to be my father's daughter, but not father's daughter slash, oh, cute little daughter, the daughter slash son.
Yeah, because you're the oldest.
I'm the eldest. I'm
Yeah.
the eldest girl syndrome. So you can imagine the eldest daughter syndrome. That's not the best thing to have. So
Yeah, can you tell us about that for those that are not the eldest daughter?
yes. Oh. So the eldest daughter syndrome, or like the online world calls it, is basically the girl who grew up being the warrior, the therapist, the son, the everything of the family, because she's the one your mom goes to or to feel comfort. She's the one dad expects from because she's going to be the success. She's the one who takes care of the younger ones because she's like a daughter slash mother. So she's the one who takes on so many responsibilities and grows up faster than she's supposed to. So many of us do that because a lot of people tell me that, oh, you're so mature for your age. I used to get that a lot when I was younger. And I used to think, oh, it's a compliment, like, yay, badge of honor. I realized, no, it's just my unprocessed trauma, which made me cope that way. And as the eldest daughter, we do that. We take on all these responsibilities, this pressure of not wanting to disappoint anyone, being the constant leader of the house, having it all together, and being the person who kind of serves everyone. I'm not saying other people don't do their part, but yeah, we have problems.
That's a lot of pressure.
That's a lot of pressure.
And just to talk about, embracing the soft girl era even a little bit more, I think, in the West, there's been studies that have shown that the amount of autoimmune diseases that a lot of women are now getting, in their 30s and 40s, they're having fertility issues.
Yes.
They are having autoimmune diseases, so like lupus and MS and thyroid disorders. And it's not just because of what we're eating or if we're not working out. It's autoimmune is like your body is attacking you.
Yes.
And the biggest culprit that we have is stress, is the cortisol, is the fight or flight. And your nervous system is constantly dysregulated. And we keep pushing and we keep pushing. And I'm sharing this as, the last 3 weeks being in India, I'm like, yep, that's what I've been doing too. So I am just as guilty. But I think it's also because, and I want to hear your perspective on this. We have been primed as a young girl.
Handle pressure.
Because it was like always expected.
Yes.
And the thing is as a woman, we can do so many things. We can entertain and we can get those things done and we can, make food and we can take care of the kids. Like we are wired to do all of those things, but then at the expense of whom at the end of the day? It's us.
Absolutely.
And so if somebody is listening to this now and they're like, all right, Simran, but how can I get into my soft girl era? What are some of the things that you can help them start with?
I think the first is acceptance that you're not in your soft girl space. Once you've accepted that you truly want to embrace that, trust and surrender. Trust, surrender, let go. These are things let go is something we do not understand. We love control. We love having it all together. Process starts with actually being okay with not being okay. A soft girl is not something which is, like there are some trends where it's always like, oh, I have my millionaire bike, like my millionaire car, I'm driving my life, living my best life in Dubai, #Dubai bling. No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is that you truly need to surrender control because that is what, it's like going back to all your nurturing, intuitive energies. So I feel the first, after you accept that that's what you want to embrace, you need to start unlearning all that you learned on your way up.
Yeah.
First thing is being aware that every single time you're doing, it's okay, like you're aware right now, you're in India, you stress, oh my God, okay, you pushed it. But going back and making sure you do something to reverse that is important as well, right? Trusting that not having a plan We've become such incredible overthinkers and planners, which was always a man's job. I don't know why we're doing it.
That is so true.
I don't know why we're doing it. And it's fine to do it. There's nothing wrong with that. I love a woman who leads, but there is more power in embracing what comes more naturally to you. And when it comes to pressure, I would love to go back to that point. And you said about when we saw our mothers, in the kitchen, blah, blah, blah. Think about it. As little girls, you're always seeing your father relaxing on the couch with the guests outside, but your mom doing backflips.
It's so true. Shout out to the moms out there, the mummies out there.
So the first person you learn this from is your own mother.
That is
because
so true.
she shows you that she's a warrior, handling 20 things together.
And she doesn't want any help.
And even if you try to help her, what you're going to get, you're going to be like, no, you're doing it wrong.
And that's the thing. It's like, you're getting it wrong, so get out.
Get out.
I actually posted this thing where I'm like, okay, I'm going to be a good bahu, and I'm going to make rotis. Because I get made fun of because they're like, oh, but she's Western, so she's not in the kitchen, which I mean is kind of true. My husband does like to cook.
I'm Eastern, I'm also not in the kitchen. I also don't like to cook.
So there was something that I posted because we were staying in a farmhouse here in Jaipur, in Jaipur, and so I was like, okay, I'm going to go into the kitchen and I'm going to help the family make rotis. And so all of the other cousins are like, no, Neeta, you sit down. Like, you don't do that. Don't do that. And literally when my mother-in-law came in the kitchen, she's like, no, get out. Go sit. But it's because even when we're offering to help, they can't receive the help because we are wired to not even receive support.
Yes.
And so even if we're dying on the inside, even if we're crumbling on the inside, it is that social conditioning of I am going to do it myself.
Yes.
And I am not going to tell anybody around me that I need help.
Yes. And these are literally 3 words. And another 3 words which we never hear, especially, I don't remember the last time. It's difficult. Now it's changing, but I grew up I don't have memory of my dad ever saying, I love you. Because in our cultures, we don't say, I love you, beta. We just don't acknowledge that, right? And I don't have a memory of him. Now he does it because we've changed and we've grown and he's growing, which I really appreciate. But I remember watching this video as well, where there was a documented series of 30 Asian kids. Asian, I'm saying.
Yeah.
And they hadn't said I love you to their parents, or their parents hadn't said I love you back to them, because we don't say I love you in our cultures. We show it through food. Mom gives you food, dad gives you protection, but we never say those words out loud. And that lack of love that we feel results in all this, right?
It's true. And so how can we start to shift that conversation? Because there's also this idea of, and I want to double click on being able to ask your parents or tell your parents I love you, because I think that was such a big thing even in my relationship, even with my in-laws, of being able to show love and affection and appreciation and to actually voice it. I mean, this is the brave table. We have to have brave conversations.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think a lot of times in Desi culture and being here in the diaspora, people shove things under a rug. And if there is a conflict, we don't talk about conflict.
Yes.
So can we unpack that? Please unpack that for us.
Okay, I get this all the time because usually I work with a lot of people on my page, a lot of millennial women, younger women sometimes, or not always, but sometimes. And I always get asked this question that, for example, I'm like, okay, set boundaries, or it's okay to have conflict and stuff like that. And they're like, but how to do it in a Desi household? These Western concepts always don't apply directly. If I tell my mom, please give me space, she'll be like, space?
What is this space?
What is this space?
I'm going to give you a thupper.
I'm going to give you a chopper. That's not even a thupper. So it's so important to understand, like, you can't approach it like, what is the textbook way to do it? The first thing is, of course, there are soft ways of trying it. That means you will try to, explain it to them, be, like in your own way, try and make them sit down, talk to them. Maybe sometimes you'll have to rebel. There are times where you may have to use more of an issue, create conflict, which we run from.
We run from conflict.
We run from conflict. Most, especially women I see, they come to me and they're like, I want to do that. My parents want me to do this, but I don't know how to tell them I don't want to be a doctor. And I'm like, you need to sit with them, have a conversation, try to reason it out. That's always the first. Nobody jumps into a battle cage fight, right? Like,
True.
Nobody listens to the loudest voice. Make your voice stronger, not louder. Come from a place where they can respect you. If I go to my parent and they'll be like, you're a stupid 19-year-old kid. What are you telling me about life? I know more about life. That's their attitude, right? So you need to sit down and try and have a conversation. Explain to them why in the long run it would be better for you. But if they don't, which sometimes happens, you'll have to resort to conflict. That means you'll have to put your foot down. And that's not easy because, again, all your people-pleasing tendencies, your need to feel accepted will all go out the window because they are immediately, you could have been the best kid ever. The day you refute them, they're literally going to be like black sheep.
Well, yes, and I want to bring this concept up because, to your point, I think there is a difference between, there is this growing up in the East and growing up in the West, where I think a lot of women who are either living in joint families or, traditional households, obviously, these Western concepts don't really land that well. I'm just going to go live my best life. I'm just going to go.
I'm moving out of my house.
I'm moving out of my house. And I'm not going to go to this thing. And so I hear, many times women but I don't want to disrespect anybody. I don't want to have the disrespect. And so do you think that people can convey their thoughts, feelings, and emotions and their needs, their desires in a way that is respectful, but is also confident in what they are trying to communicate
100%
to their elders?
Yeah, I think there is something called power of words, right? So if you are coming from a place of where you're secure about what you want to say, the other person would be ready to hear as well. I think also coming from the perspective of them instead of you. My father is a businessman. When I told him that I want to start a business, after I I quit my job at this high-end luxury brand in 3 months, I go to him and I'm like, I'm going to start a business. And I've only done jobs till then. And I thought he'd understand, right? He's a businessman. He'll understand. He goes like, don't do it. And I'm like, why, Dad? I thought you'll support my dream. Like, you yourself are doing it. My grandfather was a businessman as well. And he goes like, no, you don't do it. Just take a job once the pandemic gets over. And I'm like, obviously, like, oh my God, you can imagine black and white tragedy in the background. And like, you can imagine the works. And at that point, I did not like him because I was like, why is he being this way with me? 1 year down the line, after I started my business, of course, I did well at it. I'm a hustler, A-grade hustler, right? So we do it well, we do it right. 1.5 years later, he's showing me off at parties and stuff like that. I'm still resentful because I'm like, now just because I'm successful, or like whatever the definition of success in our society, let's not even get there, he's happy. But then I realized only very recently that the reason he told me not to do it is because he knows how difficult it is to run a business and not everyone is cut out for it. And why would he want to subject his daughter to that? He wants his daughter to have a easy and safe life.
Easy and safe. Easy and safe. That's why doctor, dentist, lawyer, engineer, nurse. Easy and safe.
Exactly. So understand their perspective. Understand why they are refuting you. I'm not saying they're right. I'm just saying that conflict resolution starts with one person. Somebody has to do it. Either you do it or they do it. And in this case, you need to do it first.
Yeah, and I think this is such a powerful concept because so often we're thinking, what about me? What about me? And there's this beautiful quote and I forget who says it, but it's first seek to understand, then to be understood. Yes. And I think that so often we're just trying to make our point across. We're trying to be heard. We're trying to be validated. And we don't recognize the power of understanding. It's kind of playing chess, right? And there's strategy involved. And it brings me back to when I was really little and my dad would play chess with me. And I'm like, oh, okay. He was setting me up for life. But it's true, because you need to know where the other person is going to put their chess piece. Yeah. And, it's not like I'm getting into politics anytime soon. Quite frankly, that is the opposite. But there is, it's seeing, like you're saying, what matters most to them. And if most of the time our ancestors, our elders, they want to keep us safe.
Exactly.
So they're going to project their own failed dreams on us. And many times, the things that we're doing now, like we're having this conversation in this room with amazing humans who are, kind of supporting the studio here in Mumbai. That wouldn't have happened. To have our own talk show, to stream to, thousands upon thousands around the world. That was just not something existing when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Even when you were growing up, this is like super new.
Yeah.
And so to think that our parents know the end all be all, that is not the case. And many times they're just trying to protect and project their own failed dreams to keep you safe. So then what? So
you've tried the nice way of doing it.
Yeah.
You've tried the respectful way. You've tried to have a conflict. You've tried everything, guys. You've tried everything. So what's the next step? Unfortunately, there's no step, right? So now you have to trust that even though this is the hardest thing, that even though you've tried everything, accepting that sometimes they're still not going to look at it the way you want them to look at it.
Yeah.
And still pursuing what your heart says and knowing when it is in the right direction or not. What I mean by that is, if I knew I wanted to build that business, I gave myself a 3-month, 6-month, 1-year goal. But then I also told myself in 1 year, if I don't do it, I'm not going to break my head over it. A lot of people do that, where they're like, oh, I'm going to do this. And then they're stuck in that. I remember there was this, I forgot the name of the actor, but he plays Jim Halpert in The Office. Okay. And there was an interview of his where he was trying to be an actor for a really long time. And he was in New York. And he calls up his mom. And his mom goes like, so he's like, you know what, I'm going to come back. I'm not going to try any more auditions. I'm going to come back. So she's like, okay, give it 6 months more. If it doesn't work in 6 months, come back. Not a worry. It's fine. Just 6 months. So he's like, cool. So he literally gave himself like, okay, in 6 months, if I land something, I'm going to stay. Otherwise, I'm going to go back. And also like setting this kind of a self-timing deadline for yourself of making it, right? He got the audition for The Office in the next 3 months, and then he went on to be, everything that he did. And then he married Emily Blunt. So yeah.
I mean, there you go. There you go. And he became Jack Ryan.
Yeah, and he became Jack Ryan. I mean, yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think it's about that understanding that not everybody will always accept your process, but you have to make them trust you.
Yeah,
Make people trust you. You don't. You earn the respect of people.
You earn the respect, just kind of like how your dad, how maybe that was the chip on your shoulder.
Yes.
To subconsciously prove him, and then when you gained his acceptance and trust.
And I was like, yeah, I gained an acceptance, but there was still so much resentment because I didn't understand him.
And so we can reframe that once we start playing chess the right way and start seeing where their belief systems are, what their motivations are, and how we can actually connect at a deeper level.
Yes, and stop trying to change people. That's what we do. Why can't my dad just understand? Why can't my sister just understand? Why can't my boyfriend just understand? You're changing them. You can't change them. You have to accept that that's who they are. That's their belief system, their value system. It's okay. If yours doesn't match theirs, it's okay.
That's one of the hardest things, I think, You know, and especially for those of you listening to the Brave Table, you've made that step to have brave conversations, to think out loud, to question the status quo, to ask more questions. And then it becomes harder to accept other people who have like very archaic views that is completely opposite than your own. And what do you do? Because in the personal growth world, it's like, but let's bring everybody along. Let's change everybody's viewpoints. And this is honestly, that has been a really big struggle, even for me, because I want everybody to live a better life.
Yes.
Especially in my family. And then I come, you know, to India and I'm like, okay, everybody should be as woke as me. And then I'm like, well, actually, no, because you're just going to be met with so much resistance that you're better off building connection based off of even the tiniest common ground.
Yes.
And that's, and just accepting them where they're at.
Exactly.
Even though you may have done the work, even though may have read the books or started your meditation, spirituality practice, not everyone is going to be on that same timeline as you, and to acceptance first, right?
Exactly. They're not going to be at the same place as you are, and that's okay. You have to learn that that's a part of life, and that's okay. Like, you still keep going, and I think there's power in building in silence. There's a lot of power in building in silence. There's this really nice quote which I love, is like, you know, build in private, celebrate in public. And it's really how life is, that, you know, that nobody on Instagram is posting their failures. Nobody.
True.
I wish people were. I think more and more.
You do that, though.
I do that. I do that all the time.
You do that. And I want to segue, though, because I know we're running out of time, and I want to make sure I get this. You do this so well on your account. And what has been the mission or vision of Brown Boss Babes?
I think for me, the vision and the mission, for me, vision, let's say, is that I wanted to create a space, and I am creating a space for especially women to feel safe, seen, heard, and supported. So that's what I want to do. I want them to feel like they belong. I think that's the whole idea of a community. So and also to realize that everybody carries a power within. You just have to be just enough to tap into it and know that it exists, you know? So that's going to be the vision that I'm going to carry forward. I would say for mission is that, I think the mission for me is women also learning to come together and collaborate and support each other in this. So for me, it's really important that we have this community because there are sometimes even I can't help people. There are people within there having their mini conversations in my comments, because they both have probably a similar journey that I've not been on, you know?
How do you deal with the trolls? Because I can only imagine there's naysayers.
So fortunately for me, I've not had big trolling on my page, because I think I'm also very, like, you know, like, I think you attract what you are kind of a thing. And I'm not very radical sometimes. So like, I think more radical pages have like more trolling if you're supporting something very, you know, extreme. But I feel like the number one thing, if you are facing that kind of backlash, is understanding that does it really matter? Like, honestly, to me, it doesn't, because everybody is entitled to an opinion. What you said about accepting different opinions, I am the most patient person. And I think I was never as a kid. But I will never be the first one to talk in a group of people. I always take 10 minutes to observe and listen. Not because people are right or wrong or make judgments about them, but because take in everything like a sponge.
I need to learn that from you. I need to learn that from you. No, I think it's powerful. I think that so often we're so used to kind of getting that word in, and we forget the power of just taking your environment in. And I think, especially in today's climate, you know, it's we want to be seen so fast, and instead of, again, reading the room, and so this has been such a beautiful conversation. I know you have a gift for us in the community. Please tell us a little bit about it, and we will put it in the show notes as well.
So I have this beautiful self-love prompt journal, which is 57 prompts to self-love. So it's absolutely free. You can check it and you can download it and come say hi to me in my newsletter.
Yay!
And I also have these free wallpapers because I feel like I'm a big visual anchor person. That means you can see my background. I don't know if you can see it, but it says Rani Energy on it.
Oh, I love that.
Because I'm like a big believer that you need to see what you're pursuing all the way. So yeah, so you can download that as well. That's also available.
Oh my goodness, I love it. We're gonna share that in the show notes. So as we get into our rapid fire round, what does it mean to be brave?
Crazy. I think being crazy. I think it takes a lot of insane and crazy and not listening to the world to be brave.
What is one either practice or book that is elevating you in your life right now?
I think my Bible has two Bibles I have, which is how to, The Magic of Thinking Big is the first one. And the second one is How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh my gosh.
People-pleasing skills, not people-pleasing skills, but people skills and vision are my two favorite things. And I always go back to it. I'm not somebody who reads a lot of books, just because I want to. I go back to the books that I really believe in, and I try and reread things to process them. So these two are my Bibles. But yeah, currently my new read is This Suck Now What, because I just got it yesterday. So that's going to be my new read of the month.
I love it.
So yeah,
I love it. I love it. And last question, one word that describes this season of life.
Season of life. I think love. I think love. I think love for everything, everyone, no differences. I think love. We can just try to be a little bit more compassionate to ourselves and everyone else. That will just change everything that's happening in the world right now.
We need more of that for sure.
Yep.
For sure. Okay, Simran, where can we get in touch with you? Share us all of the things.
Awesome. So you can find me on Instagram right now at brownbossbabesco and come say hi. I'd love to say hi to you.
Oh my goodness, this was such an incredible conversation.
Thank
I just
you.
want to honor you for your wisdom and the amount of just courageous and audacious bravery that you have to pave the way for so many women in the diaspora. I can only see you and your account and your vision and mission even just growing even bigger in the next few years. So
thank you.
I'm so excited that I get to be part of the initial start of the journey.
Thank you, Neeta. Thank you so much for having me. I highly appreciate it. You've been one of my connections for like the longest time, I think at least a year.
Yeah.
Funny fact that we met online and today we meet in person. I think that is the power of the social world, right? So yeah. And I think you're one of the most loving, warm-hearted, you're like a hug in person, which
I take that. I take that.
That makes sense.
The queen of connection. There you go.
Queen of connection. Absolutely.
Well, until next time on the Break Table.
If we are breaking down, maybe the universe is like, ooh, let's take a pause. So oftentimes it will hit us with a cold, or maybe we're just feeling energetically depleted, but know why. A lot of times we leave the holiday season being so depleted and we don't give ourselves